Hold on. Welcome to Tesse Talks with a special host today, Carole Levy. And typically on Tesse Talks, we share with you, our listeners, top leadership and management strategies. This has been a journey of discovery. In this, our discovery journey, we have learned that leadership is personal and professional. And we always invite you, our listeners, to walk alongside with us in this adventure. So today, as I mentioned, we have a different host. Her name is Carole Levy. And we are going to be talking about mastery of different kinds. But before we do that, let me tell you about Carole. Carole is a leading coach and talent development master. I'll take that again. Carole Levy, a leading coach and talent development master, is turning the lens on both Tesse and myself. And in this case, it's Tesse. She has offered to talk to us about her transitions and reimaginations. And when Carole asks, we say yes. So Tesse is saying yes. So here we are in the compassionate and kind seat created by Carole. Thank you so much, Carole, for coming on to this new version or this different version of Tesse Talks.
Thank you, Paula. Well, Tesse, yes. We met in 2007, and I was a coach in an organization at the time, a leadership training company, and you attended one of the one-year programs. So it was a big commitment for you. So I met you in 2007, and but tell us about, so where were you at when we met? What was the arc of your journey? And then we talk about the rest of your life after 2007. But give us some context.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Carole. And 2007, when we met, I had got a lot of academic qualifications. You know, I become a lawyer. I was qualified in both Nigeria and in England and Wales as a solicitor. I was a company secretary. I was qualifying as an executive and personal development coach. And so I had so many paper qualifications. However, I felt that something was missing. And I didn't quite know what the missing piece was, but I sensed that if I found it, I would know that I'd hit it. And I was actually introduced to you, Carole, by William Ryan, mm-hmm. who is one of the world's leading consultants on leadership and governance. And he role modeled and still continues to role model leadership. And when I said I wanted to be like him, he said, meet my coach. And that's how I got to meet you. But before then, life was strange. You know, I was born of Nigerian parents in the 60s. And my father went to Queen's University in Belfast, and we grew up in Belfast. However, life challenges happened, and my brothers, my sister and I were taken into care in Northern Ireland. And sadly, it's become very clear to me in recent times that I was a victim of child abuse. You know, it was just an awful experience. And I went to Nigeria where my parents were when I was 10 years old. And it was in Nigeria when I was 13 that I met Paula. So, you know, Paula talks of us being in a situation where we were not understood, and that was the case. But in meeting Paula, a friendship was born for life, and it was compassionate and kind and safe. In Nigeria, with my parents were also very academic and very driven by performance, and that in many ways was good. because they drove me to excel, and I got scholarships for most of my university life. I was on scholarships, and I became a lawyer at the tender age of 21. I was already
Mm,
called to the Nigerian Bar
mm,
Association as a solicitor barrister, as a fused profession. And I specialized, first and foremost, I specialized in criminal defense law, and
mm,
then but went on to specialize in commercial law and international law, and served as a head of company secretarial practice in a medium-sized accountancy firm. But then I knew that something was missing, because there's always
mm,
this thing about things that are missing, and oh, this is
right,
something's missing. I didn't quite know what it was.
right.
So I decided to relocate to United Kingdom, which is the country of my birth, but with the
Mhm,
intention of staying United Kingdom for 3 years. I never intended to stay in United Kingdom for more than 3 years. However, 30 something years on,
mhm,
I didn't go back to Nigeria. I go back for holidays, but I never went back. And in the United Kingdom, my qualifications were not recognized. So I had to retrain. And I retrained for over 10 years. I retrained. And in the meantime, I had very manual jobs, very, I did kitchen work, I did supermarket work, I did clerical work, and I was a very junior civil servant. And at the time, I hated it, just from just being a practicing lawyer to doing this manual work. But I had really good advisors at the time, and they encouraged me by saying that there's nothing that I would ever do that would not be used. And actually now I realize that as being true, because if I had not been in these jobs and had to have 3 jobs to pay the rent and so on, I wouldn't know what it is to struggle on very little. And I learned how to struggle on very little, sometimes
mm,
not even having enough food to eat. I was there. Being homeless, I was there. I mean, there were
uh,
so many things that were difficult, and studying at the same time as having 3 manual jobs. It was hard. But actually, when I did my exams in company secretarial practice, I got 3 awards, academic awards. I won 3 awards. And it really set me up for success, because I started getting roles as a middle manager, and then I got roles in development, and that set me up for where I am now. So people
mm,
who think that I didn't struggle, they don't know what was going on before, because God knows that I did. And when I met you, I had just left my job at the National Council for Voluntary Organizations, where I headed the governance and leadership team. And I'd left that job. I had become self-employed. I had been headhunted by Bates Wells, London LLP, the law firm. And I was at a very tender phase of my entrepreneurial journey,
mm,
and feeling quite unconfident about what that looked like, not having a salary at the end of the month, actually just whatever. I was very tender. I was excited. I was scared. I had a whole mix of emotions. And then I
uh-huh,
met you, Carole. And I think that really brings me up to date, really.
uh-huh. Well, thank you. That's beautifully said, your arc. So when we met, so I'm back to something was missing. That's very intriguing.
Mm,
When we met,
mm.
have you found the piece that was missing, or you were still searching for it?
I was still searching for it. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when I met you, you were doing a lot of workshops.
Yeah.
Also, you were really into leadership development, personal development.
Mm.
Um, where was it coming from for you? Why this thirst for
Mm.
for this type of work?
Mm. I deep down, I wanted to find the answer to that because I didn't know what it was. You know, it's just kind of like I was reaching out, but I didn't quite know why I was reaching out. I didn't know what is it that I'm looking for that would be that piece where I say I'm satisfied. I wasn't very sure about that. And but what I think unconsciously I wanted is that I wanted to be a good person. I wanted to be a good person. I wanted to be doing good things for other people as well as for myself. And I think when I looked at William Ryan and I saw what kind of person that that he was very smart and he was very quick but he was very kind and generous. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be that kind of person, but I think I knew enough to know that it just wouldn't happen. It had to be honed in a way that it could be supported. And I knew that technically it could be supported, but it wouldn't get me to where I wanted to be. So there was a lot of unknowns that were there, but also knowing that with the right kind of guidance, I could be the best version of myself. So I think that search was actually to be the best version of myself without knowing really what that best version of myself is or was.
So what was your journey about when we met and you started all this work on yourself? How did you grow? Where did it lead you?
That's really good. And I'm going to start from something that even today has really changed about me. And that is feedback. I hated feedback. Feedback. And I remember you saying, make feedback your friend. And I thought I can never make feedback my friend, because the way that I looked at feedback, that I saw feedback as being something that was very critical, very horrible, very punishing. Everything negative was how I looked at feedback. Now, I'm not saying that today I don't get defensive, because I'm human, I do. However, what has changed is that I will ask people for feedback. I'll invite feedback. I'll invite it. And not only will I invite feedback, but I'll also invite feed forward, which is how can I plan ahead? So retrospectives, as well as things leading up to that. So that was really good. And that, Carole, I learned through your coaching, was the power of feedback. So that was one thing. The second thing that I learned through your coaching and through LAL was I learned the importance of looking at your desired images and the image that you are embracing, which is your authentic and vulnerable you. So how you can go back to source and you can begin to feed from source, which is from echo rather than ego. So the ecosystem, which is the inner person, and the expression of that in an outward performance. I learned how to do that, not just to have the technical tools, but actually to embed that in my psyche, in my being, and live it out. And knowing, even as I know now, that work is never complete. That work continues, but it gave me the confidence that I could be on that journey. And I remember my late brother Tony saying to me, when are you going back to that place where they fix you? Because because he did, he was in, I go that place where they fix you, because he noticed that there was something different, and that difference was not pain free. But the difference was, how can I let go of something in order to get something else? And how can that something else be better than what was there before? And if there's a way I can put it, it was a deconstruction really, and a reconstruction. It was a valuable journey. It was a valuable thing, and it's not pain free. But actually, having been on that journey, which I still am on now, it definitely is a worthwhile journey.
You know, I mean, you're not, and you're not the same person today than when I met you. And it's not because of the work we've done together. Meaning, we've done some work together, and I think it has really helped you to stretch yourself and step outside of your comfort zone and overcome your fears, but something else happened. So do you want to continue, tell the story of the other part of the story, meaning from 2007, maybe 2010 until today?
Yeah, you're quite right, and that's another arc that is there, and what happened there. Because when I left you in 2012, and you kindly drew it out so I can financially pay the fees, for the course. I went to Canada. And
Right.
I attended Ian's activist course.
Yeah.
I met Jean-Paul there, your lovely husband. I met him there.
Jean-Pierre.
Jean-Pierre.
Yeah.
I met Jean-Pierre there, and that was a very life-changing situation as well, because what happened in Gabriola was that I began to recognize the place of activism and campaigning from within, and actually being a pacifist, and how to use our values and our being to bring about social change, and that's what I learned there. And after that, I went on to Arizona, and in Arizona I learned more tools about how to create the future that you want. And in going to creating the futures, I learned a lot about creating the future that you want to see, and the future being created now by what we do now, and our responsibility for shaping what we would like to see. And I that completely, again, everything built on everything else. But unfortunately, in 2014, my health, which in the past had suffered 2002, began to suffer again. So between 2014 and 2018, I suffered from really, really poor health. And I was in and out of hospital, sometimes short stays, sometimes longer stays. And I almost lost my life in the process. And it was horrible. It was a horrible time. But because I was self-employed, I had to work as well as cater for my very, very poor health. And I think if you've noticed a difference in me, partly that is actually being able to hold the uncertainty, the pain, because a lot of it was physically very painful, and just keep going with everything hurting. And at the same time, in 2016, my nieces were abducted in Nigeria, and 3 of them, and it was just a horrible time. And in 2017, my father began to become quite ill. He was old, but he began to become ill. In 2018, he died. So it was a period of in-depth loss. There was so much loss, and it was how to actually hold the loss and keep going. And I think for me, what was very important at that time was having the love and support of my brothers, Tony and John, and just keeping going, taking me to hospital, bringing me back, Tony just encouraging, and it was that. But actually the world around me was crumbling. The world was crumbling.
Wow.
And in that also, I'll throw Paula in there as well, because when Paula lost her husband, Paula, my close friend, Henry, her husband, I knew that was painful too. So there just seemed to be so much churning the loss. And then come 2020, and Tony was killed. And then at that point in time, I just felt my life just lost meaning. And that's the journey that I'm on now. Because the journey I'm on now is back to that thing about the piece that is missing. And I am actually challenged right now, because I think that what I thought was missing wasn't missing. that actually, you never know what something is worth until you lose it. So actually the missing part was actually always there, and that is the love of friends, the love of my family was always there. So when I was looking for the missing piece, there wasn't really anything missing from there. And it's actually been it's taken the losing of Tony as a final thing now to make me realize the wealth that has been there. What is there? And I think actually what is happening now is me recognizing not to make the same mistake that I made, because how I was thinking before was a mistake. It was wrong thinking. And and now it's how can I appreciate every day? How can I embrace what matters? How can I take things that, even when they're not good, even when they're painful, etc., how can I stitch the wholeness of those things and actually appreciate them in the moment for now? And so everything flipped. Everything flipped. And I would say that if I was to look at my younger self, there were so many things that I sweated in my younger self that I wouldn't sweat in my older self. But then the way I look at it is I cannot change the past, but I can create a different future. So it's if I want to, because there have been times when I just didn't even want a future, and it's a desperation, of if I'm going to have tomorrow, what do I need to do today to have tomorrow? So it's an existential journey right now, I guess.
Right. So you're saying that you don't have the missing piece anymore, because you're seeing it was really a distortion of the mind, the ego, around running after something that you had actually. And the death of the tragic death of Tony brought you back to it's the love of the people around me that I had, and was sort of missing, but it's not missing, it's what there. So, but you're saying also that you're struggling with despair. Meaning, tell more about this feeling, because it's at the same time you're connecting with the true meaning of life in a way for you, and at the same time the feeling of despair.
And that's a fantastic question, because the existential piece is, what is success? What is the meaning of life? Why all this? What matters? And that and the despair is the saying goodbye. The saying goodbye to people we love, we care for, and yet not saying goodbye, because I never said goodbye to my brother. My brother was snatched away. He was killed. And so the grief is that grief is the things that did not happen because of that snatch, but the emptiness created by that presence not being there, and the grief and the loss and the tragedy and the despair is, could I have had more? What have I lost? What mattered? Did I make the best use of the time we had together? And I guess those are questions that I'm asking myself, and I'm sure other people ask themselves, about what is really important in our lives, what is really important, what is really important, that if we didn't have it, we would miss it. So let's not miss it. And to me, the previous journey that I described, the previous arc, was that I was working all the time. Almost
Right.
every hour,
Right.
everything that moved that could be worked, I worked it. If there was more hours to be had in the office or whatever, proving, whatever. But actually, this time, as I sit talking to you and Paula, I just think a lot of that was wasted effort in terms of what was really important. What was really important. And actually, my health to a large degree suffered because I wasn't eating well, I wasn't sleeping well, I wasn't taking care of myself, I wasn't spending enough time with my family, I wasn't even spending enough time with myself. So, what exactly was all that about? And I guess that there are a lot of people like me that have
Right.
this on the treadmill.
Right.
But what's that
Totally.
treadmill?
Yeah.
What's a treadmill about?
So what was the treadmill about for you before? What were you chasing after?
I think that consciously I felt that if I gained XYZ, and it wasn't really about money. Sometimes it was about visibility, sometimes it was about recognition. I love learning. If I got this degree, I got that degree, that award, this award, if I got all those things, I'll be okay. So a lot of it was to be okay, to be seen
Right.
as somebody,
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
worthwhile, somebody successful, somebody
Mm.
valuable. So to
Mm.
me, it was, if I got these things, this would be success.
Right.
And in my mind, this is what success looked like.
Mhm.
Success was this. Success was getting an award. Success was traveling the world. Success was, and now I'm like, what was all that about?
No, but that's really clear. Success was all these things, and yet something was always missing
Always missing.
in the chasing.
Always missing.
And with the killing of Tony, it's been a terrible void and sense and emptiness. But at the same time, you're saying that again, you met a clarity. There was something really profound emerging from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Including the activism in you, because also the circumstances around his death were also really difficult. You want to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it was awful. Still is, because it's ongoing. It's an ongoing situation that when Tony was killed by the hit and run driver in Dover in England, the systems that we have in the country didn't hold us well as a family. We were not held at all, and the level of disrespect beggars belief. And the worst level of disrespect was my brother's body was not preserved, and we had to have a closed coffin. We didn't sight his body, which in Africa is an important thing, that we take care of the body of our dead, and we view the body of our dead before we put it in the ground. That's what we do. That's what we do. But we didn't have that. So to me, because I'm an optimist, I actually believed then, and still do believe, in fundamental human rights, to have equity, to have equality, and to have the preservation and the dignity of the human body in life and in death. In my earlier years, I studied under the leading human rights lawyer in Nigeria, Gani Fawemi. I studied in his chambers. And now I can see the connection in my life between the different parts. I actually studied under Gani, and I learned the important things of human rights. And here I was, and still am, in the United Kingdom, and just seeing the disrespectful and, in my opinion, inhumane and uncompassionate approach to our family and to my late brother, who, by the way, died while he was serving this country. He was an NHS key worker working during COVID times and was in the place where he was because he was collecting samples and was killed. And yet he was not recognized, acknowledged as a hero or anything positive. And I just found that all very mystifying, as well as ugly. So today I find myself as an activist because, the newspapers didn't want to know. People who would have thought were key supporters of equality didn't want to know. And so I had to find my inner voice, and fall back on the skills that I have engendered in myself, and with the support of others through my legal qualifications, through my coaching qualification, the facilitation qualification, and my mediation qualifications. I had to fall back on this and take a platform to say that my brother's life wouldn't be in vain and he would not be forgotten. And this led me eventually to approach my member of parliament. And luckily for me, my member of parliament, Barry Gardner, MP, he took up my case, and he's still working on behalf of the family. And things are moving now, and I'm glad that this is a battle that is still going on, and it is a battle, but it's a battle that I hope that my brother would be proud of, that we are fighting for him.
Wow, so well said, Tesse. This voice, this activist voice, was it surprising to have it emerge, or you knew it was there but you didn't know necessarily how to exercise it?
The honest truth is that I didn't even know it was there.
Oh wow.
I think that other people recognized it was there before I did, because I remember speaking to Ian Curtin in Canada, and he said to me, "You're an activist, it's inner." And that's how I got into the inner activist course, because he said it's inside, and I didn't know that. At the time when I was doing the course, I was actually doing some work with Amnesty International, and that was governance work. But little did I know that there was a deeper root in me, because I tend to be a bit scared, I'll do my thing, like really quiet, don't rock the boat, whatever. And what
before.
Before. I did what I saw. I just saw this Amazon woman, this Deborah. I just didn't know where this Deborah came from, where is she? It just, I didn't, that part of me was unknown to myself. It was really, the Johari Windows style. It was really Johari Windows thing. It was unknown to me and known to others.
It's fascinating how you're describing this track around chasing after success. Even, by the way, if it's in a non-profit or a foundation, meaning an organization mission-driven, you can chase for success and be miserable or unhappy or unsatisfied, or something dramatic, terrible happen, and you found your voice in a way. Do you think it's your voice?
Yeah, it's my voice, but I think it's other voices, because I think what is happening to me, and as I said, my grieving for my late brother is ongoing. But what I'm finding is I'm finding my late brother's voice in me. And as the days go on, I see my late brother's voice in me, and what I'm it's a daily journey, but what is emerging from this broken heart, because my heart is broken,
Right.
is that my brother was investing in me all that time. He was really investing in his little sister. He was caring for his little sister. And there's something, in the African tradition that says that people don't leave you without knowing that you can make the rest of your journey without them. They take you so far, they hold your hand, they nurture you, they're with you, and they grow you, and you flourish and you nourish, and they leave you physically knowing that you'll be okay to go on that journey without them, because their presence and their love and their nurture in your life has been so big that they know that you can continue carrying them in your heart. And I think that's what happened with Tony. I think Tony always knew that I was stronger than I thought I was. And so the daily journey I have now is stepping ahead 1 hour at a time, until I get to a place where I can step, knowing that life is a circle, that this circle completes. And this is just a circle of life. I think that's why I love Lion King. I think I love Lion King because it has that song about the circle of life. And I think, there's a song that talks about you seeing a reflection of your face in the river. And in many ways, the people who we love, the people who we care about, whether they're our fathers, our mothers, our sisters, our husbands, our friends, whatever, at the point when they leave us on earth, there is that reflection of life in how we reflect in our life in this body, how we reflect that which is part of them. So it's very existential, and definitely not pain-free.
And what you said about your heart being broken, which is often when our heart is broken, it's a moment where we really have access to our heart. So the vulnerability and the compassion and the love. I mean, there is a mix of feelings around pain and excruciating pain, and at the same time opening. What's the purpose for you that is emerging from this broken heart?
That's a beautiful question. That is a beautiful question. I'm going to start with something that I came across, and then I'll answer that question. I had a discussion with a lovely woman who does a lot of work around social enterprise. And she told me about the Japanese arts where they use gold to mend broken pots. And, nothing is wasted. Nothing is wasted. And the gold, it brings the things together. And what you see in the pottery, you see a pottery with fractions, and the gold fills those fractions, and that's the pot. It's beautiful in its broken state. And it's not what it was. It's become something else. And I see that what is emerging for me is how I can use my presence, how I can use my skills, how I can use my voice, and how I can use my heart to help not just myself, but to help other people. And I think that there's something in that thing, because it's important to do it for the right reasons. So it's not displacement and it's not ego, that it is an ecosystem which is about together we can do this together. Together we can be in the world in a better state than it was. So me, I see my work, my whatever time I have left on earth, that it's a channel of healing and of repair of the heart, knowing that repair is not what it was,
Right.
but it could be that glue that just cares and actually, as Brené Brown has said, as her work, which has become world renowned, is about authenticity and vulnerability, that knowing that in that brokenness there is completeness, because it can never be perfect. So it's not really a striving for perfection, but it is a sort of journeying, knowing that it is what it is, and it's ups and it's downs, but that's life. I think what is becoming clear to me is the assumption that happiness is what completes, and actually life is what it is. There are broken bits, there's pain, there's loss, there's death, and that's all life. So sometimes I think that I'm admitting that while I'm still on this journey, the Hollywood version of life is what it is. It's a version, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. The tears and the pain and all that, that's all part of life, and that's all part of living. So I just see that hopefully in whatever time I have, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, that I really begin to see life as life, not the Hollywood version. And in seeing that, what I can do in partnership, in collaboration with others, that we just do it together. And sometimes I'll fail, and that's part of life, and sometimes I'll succeed, and that's part of life as well.
Well, you're really speaking so beautifully, Tesse, I have to say. You're really inspired and inspiring. What do you actually concretely, what do you offer? How do you help people? If people need you, what do you offer?
I would like to say that I offer hope. A hope of something becoming possible, and part of that is that through the coaching that I do, because I am a coach, I'm a mediator, which is that I do peace building, and peacemaking, and I'm a facilitator, which means I host conversations. And my offering is to create safe places and safe spaces where there can be repair and restoration and relaxation and care and compassion, held with competence. I mean, it's kind of like it's not like a dreamy, airy fairy kind of, it will come right in the night. No, this is actually intentionally built around competencies and capability. And that's what I bring. I mean, it's offering those skills of compliance with compassion. And in that, people would be able to encounter somebody who knows what she's doing and does it from her heart as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to stop, but
yeah. Thank you.
You're a narrator. You're really, I mean, an incredible speaker.
Thank you.
I echo that.
Thank you.
But what I do like after listening to all of that is that she started off by saying, oh, part of this talk, she spoke about being in despair, but at the same time, she has come to the realization that Hollywood's definition of life is a facade. And what she has gone through and what happens in the world, despair, sadness, hurt, grief, it's really what life is about. And so having experienced this, Tesse, as you say, what I'm hearing from you, and because Carole, you started off the conversation by saying, Tesse, you have changed. The change I see coming about or has come about or that is emerging is a realization of course, life and its turmoils are all part of life. But how can I, from what I've gone through, how can I serve? Because I got something in me that I can now give to people. You didn't define it as hope, but you defined it as a way that you can use your skills of being a coach, a facilitator, a mediator, and even with your legal background to help people to understand and come to the realization that Hollywood is a facade. The movies we watch about heaven, happily ever after, that doesn't happen. But what happens is what we go through and what is really going on in the world, and how can I take what has impacted me to help others who have been impacted by real life scenarios. That's what I heard. And I think there's a hope. There's a hope in you now. There's a I've lost the word. I don't want to say there's an ambition. There's a driving force. Yes, you said your voice is not just your voice, it's yours and Tony's. And yeah, Tony is gone.
There is a depth.
There's a depth.
And that's what I also heard, the mixed up of despair and clarity and love. Despair, love, clarity, and there is this depth and gravitas. Well said, Paula, also.
Yeah, and you said something about purpose at the beginning of our conversation when we talked about collaboration. There is a purpose for what has happened, and there's a purpose for you, because we can't give what we don't have. When we have some tough times in our life and we emerge, there's something we are giving to people who are like grasping on straws, and they see you emerge and they're like, oh, she got through this. And if your hands are open, they can hold on to your hands and feel that there is hope for them. They can get through it too, so that they too in turn can help other people. Thank you, Carole. This is amazing.
Well, it's thank you, you too. It's really you filled me.